Welcome back, and Owen's back for a look at the business news. Hello again, Owen. Starting with the markets, what are they making of the ECB's latest credit feast then?
Not really feeling the love for it this time, Claire, but of course, remember, this is a Eurozone operation, essentially, for banks in the Eurozone, so Asian banks aren't going to quite feel the trickle effect in the same way that European banks will. That said, it's not been a great day's trade so far. The Nikkei has not long closed. Managed to scale back some of its losses for the day, but nevertheless finished around 0.1% off. China as well, the Shanghai Composite has managed to swing into the green. That's despite the fact that the latest manufacturing data confirms what the World Bank was saying effectively at the start of earlier this week, that the Chinese economy is indeed slowing down.
So not much love for the ECB's latest credit feast, but Apple's really feeling the love.
Yeah, it was really Apple that certainly helped the US markets, even though they did finish the day down. This company now, as we know, stratospheric growth, I think it's fair to say, and has now joined what they call the 500 Club. That's a handful of companies in the world, the likes of ExxonMobil, Microsoft were there for a while in the last decade or so, that have a market capitalization, excuse me, of over $500 billion. That's the point that Apple reached over the last couple of days. You can see its shares now well above $500 each. In fact, they've put on gains of around $100 just in the past month alone. Record results again, and the added cachet of a new iPad, so we're told, or so we're rumoured, in the wings to be unveiled next week. So expect a new iPad in about a week's time. The iPad 3, they're calling it, I think. What kind of specifications it's got, we don't know yet, but of course you'll have that customary launch by Apple with lots of intrigue and secrecy and so on.
All right, now, the European Central Bank's new round of cheap loans may not have set the markets alight, but it triggered a rush as 800 banks snapped up 500 billion euros of cheap loans. The long-term refinancing operation has been a huge success, giving banks the confidence and means to buy up the debts of countries like Italy and Spain. But key voices in Europe fear the ECB is becoming like a doctor who gets his patient addicted to painkillers, and it's putting banks at risk.
The European Central Bank is practically giving money away for a second time. It's part of its long-term refinancing operation, or LTRO, and was even more popular this time around. 800 banks took up the 3-year credit deal. Billions was loaned out at an incredibly low interest rate of just 1%. The ECB loans were meant to stimulate bank lending to businesses and consumers, but so far they've had little effect.
The idea that the long-term repo operations have eased the supply of finance to small businesses in the euro area is a myth.
Where these loans have helped is in easing the Eurozone crisis. Banks have bought up sovereign debt, lowering borrowing costs for some countries, though opinion is divided on what effect it'll have on the most vulnerable.
The liquidity injection by the ECB cannot save Greece because they have this homemade problem called no competitiveness. And that problem cannot be solved even by the ECB. But the ECB can stabilize those countries which have functioning economies like Italy and Spain.
But this loan to debt-ridden countries by proxy is exactly what has many within the European Central Bank worried. The size of the December loans prompted the president of the German Bundesbank, Jens Weidmann, to warn the ECB not to take excessive risks or lose sight of its mandate, which is controlling inflation. The ECB has flagged up that its second LTRO could be its last. It doesn't want Eurozone banks to become dependent on its support and hopes the onus of tackling the debt crisis can fall back on governments.
OK, let's get one or two more of the day's headlines for you now, starting with Peugeot, which along with GM will cut jobs and close factories to consolidate their European operations as part of a new alliance. That's according to sources quoted by Bloomberg. GM has agreed to buy a 7% stake in its French rival, a move that will make it the second biggest shareholder behind the Peugeot family. Peugeot plans a €1 billion share offer as part of the tie-up, which is aimed at saving costs by sharing components with GM and jointly developing new models.
Veolia's chief executive has fought off a boardroom coup. Antoine Frérot won the board's confidence following reports that former boss Henri Proglio was leading a campaign to get rid of him. The company is expected to report losses of around €200 million later this Thursday. Frérot is trying to stem the damage by selling off €5 billion of assets.
And the UK's Supreme Court has delivered a ruling that should help Lehman Brothers creditors recover some of their investments. The High Court says Lehman must divide up cash that belongs to clients, including money it mixed with its own. Lehman had kept around $2 billion of client money separate, but it is thought to have had far greater sums merged with its own accounts when it collapsed in 2008. Now, shareholders have wanted it for some time, and finally, James Murdoch has quit as chief executive of News International. That leaves his family with no direct involvement in UK newspapers. Officially, Rupert Murdoch's son is moving on to the lucrative pay-per-view TV business, but it's clear that the phone hacking scandal has forced the Murdoch family to put a little bit of distance between the UK and its parent operations.
The one-time heir apparent is stepping down. James Murdoch resigned as the executive chairman of News International. He'll now move to parent company News Corp's headquarters to focus on its international television business. A job change that could signal he's no longer the next in line to lead the media empire owned by his father, Rupert Murdoch. The resignation comes in the wake of a phone hacking scandal that came to light last summer. Though not at the helm of News International when the hacking took place, James Murdoch has been criticized for his handling of the affair.
It's very difficult to conclude, I think now, that James Murdoch did not know that he and his company were engaged in a massive cover-up. It's very difficult to believe that he ever really subscribed to the belief that there was just one rogue reporter.
The scandal has since widened to include accusations that journalists also paid large sums of money to corrupt officials. News Corp says James Murdoch's move to New York was planned, but his removal also helps its British newspapers make a clean break from the scandal.
Clearly, James Murdoch was a key person. He was running the company during the time when a lot of these payments were being made. And therefore, if News International wanted to move on to start afresh, then I think, obviously, his presence was always going to be a problem for them.
Meanwhile, News International has already paid out millions of dollars in settlement fees to victims who had their voicemails hacked.
So, Owen, do you think James Murdoch's resignation will be enough then for this company to put the phone hacking scandal behind it?
Well, it's a difficult one in some ways, Claire, because obviously that phone hacking scandal is continuing to cause headlines in the UK. We've got that parliamentary-led inquiry into the whole phone hacking scandal. In fact, this week we've had key senior police officers confirming really a lot of the allegations that were kicking around when the News of the World was forced to close amid that whole, phone hacking scandal. But in other ways, it has helped already. We've seen the share price for News Corp rebounding. It lost around 70% of its value in the wake of the News Corp scandal. It's rebounded sharply. They've had good results, News Corp. Sky B, that James Murdoch is chairman of, that's had a good performance as well. And of course, he's now moving into the most lucrative part of the Murdoch empire, which is TV. Huge assets, huge profits to be made there. It's an operation that's expanding all the time. The newspaper division for News Corp doesn't really earn them a massive amount of money. It's only worth something like 2 or 5% of News Corp's revenues. It's more a symbolic thing, really, in the fact that this is,
It was close to their hearts.
It was close to their heart. It was Rupert Murdoch's first foray into a foreign newspaper business. It's hugely symbolic. Yes, he's launched that new newspaper, The Sun, on Sunday, but we shouldn't kid ourselves here. The newspaper division in the UK really isn't the future of this company.
All right, thanks very much, Owen. Owen with a look at the day's business news. Stuart Noble will have all the latest headlines for you in just a few minutes' time. Do stay tuned to France 24.
Watch France 24 live and free on your mobile phone. Anywhere in the world, on almost any cell phone, whatever your provider. Watch France 24 live and in 3 languages. France 24 on your mobile phone. Just visit our website, france24.com, and click on mobile. Select your phone brand, enter your phone number, and you'll receive a free SMS telling you how to install our player. You can watch France 24 live and get the latest world news for free on your mobile.